Okay.
Um, Hi everyone, my name is Free. Use they them pronouns. Me and Chauntey are with an organization called Trans Youniting, um, where I'm a board member. Um, yeah, I've been involved with Trans Youniting for 2.5 years. We'll dive into the work that our org does here in Pittsburgh. And Shantae's going to start off with her life experience, and then I'm going to go into some more theoretical stuff and then talk about what activism centering Black trans lives looks like here in Pittsburgh. Um, so yeah, Shantae, take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chauntey MoNique Porter. Um, I am a post-op trans woman. Uh, I am the president of Trans Youniting, right up under Dana Stanley. 42 years old, Pittsburgh, born and raised, Pittsburgh, PA, from the Hill District. Um, so about myself and my experiences. I have to go a little back to let you understand. So I was born and raised into a very deep rooted Christian home, where at a very young, tender age, I realized that I liked female toys better than I liked boy toys. And so each year for my birthday and Christmas, I would ask my mom for baby dolls and things like that. And of course, her being um the woman that she is, she will always say, no, you're a boy, you're supposed to play with these toys and stuff like that. And it broke my heart. So I stopped asking. And once I had a little sister, it made it easier because then what I would do, I learned how to play with my toys and incorporate her toys into playing with my toys to make it just seem like I was just, um, doing what I was supposed to do. But I would always make her baby dolls beat up my like G.I. Joe action figures and things like that. So growing up, I was a very clean child. I didn't do what the typical boys did. I didn't get out there playing in the dirt, excuse me, or wrestle around and things like that. I did play sports. Um, I'm sorry. That was the a little. Sorry about that. And I did play sports. Um, so basically, oh, mom. Speaking of my mother, she always picks the wrong time. So excuse me.
You're good, Shantae. Take a minute.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I am so sorry about that. Um, so basically, throughout school, my family members, they knew um that there was something different about me. They knew that I was very flamboyant and things like that. People just started to accept the fact that um I was different, as they put it. Therefore, so um, going through high school, once I got into the ninth grade, I ended up going to Kappa, which is the Pittsburgh High School for Creative and Performing Arts here. And what happened was I was in the dance department, and uh, basically I got tired of hiding. I figured, here's a new start. I'm a freshman in high school. I'm really ready to spread my wings and things like that, and I'm miserable. So therefore, I came out to my classmates in school first. And everyone was acceptable. Everybody actually appreciated my bravery and things like that. So it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Basically, I flourished through high school pretty much with no problems. It was very accepting. My problems came from home. As I said earlier, my family is a very deep-rooted Christian family with deep roots in the Christian community. So it was very judgmental. It was very hard as a teenage child to come out to my family and say, hey, this is who I am. Accept me. So therefore, basically I started to rebel. The nice, open-minded young child that I was, I started to get mean and vindictive, and aggression started to set in. So it was, since I didn't argue with my family, I started to argue with my peers, kids, the people around me and things like that. So it was more, people started to be like skeptical of dealing with me on a personal level and things like that. So it was hard. I'm trying not to get too emotional. I started to get ostracized from the my other peers that I was growing up with. A lot of people didn't want to deal with me. They started calling me bullies and things, which I never bullied anyone. It was just a simple fact that the way I looked at things were, if you weren't with me, you were against me. So basically what ended up happening, I made it through school, doing a lot of fighting and things like that. My senior year in high school is when I started my transition. I started wearing female clothes to school. I started doing my I
Hey y'all, this is one of the co-hosts. We're experiencing some technical difficulties, so just hang on with us as we get our presenters back online. Cheers. Hey Chauntey, we've got you, you're on mute.
like that. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes, we're good.
Okay. Headphones on. Headphones because I've a vehicle. They both are. They both. I think Bob
Hello, everyone.
So,
Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties. Chauntey, I don't know if you can hear me, but we
I
cannot
can hear you.
hear
I
you
can hear
right
you. Can you hear me?
now.
Can you guys hear me?
Now we can, Chauntey, yes.
Yeah, now we can.
Okay. Sorry about that. Basically, like I was saying, I barely made it through high school, um, due to the fighting. Being a very angry teenager, dealing with the personal issues that I was dealing with my family. To just backtrack a little bit, my sophomore year, 10th grade, I did end up running away multiple times from my home. So by running away, I started staying with the adults that were a part of the LGBT community, to where I I thought that I was being finally found people who accepted me. And as I got older, I realized I was being used because they were adults. Technically, I was still a kid. I was introduced into sex work at the age of 15, 16, and things like that. So um, this was my teenage life. School, going to wherever I was staying, getting a little bit of rest, going out that evening, doing sex work, going home, and getting ready for school. But I made it. I made it through school, but I still was angry. Um, 2 days after I graduated from high school, I got into a very big fight in a club here that was open back then called Pegasus, where I ended up getting arrested for a simple assault charge, and that's where my road dealing with incarceration started. Um, I recently looked over my record, and I realized that I've been arrested 24 times. Um, and the multiple charges was always like some type of assault, whether it be simple assault or aggravated assault, assault with weapons and things like that. Like I said, I was very angry. I was angry with people. I took my anger out on everybody around me because of the lack of acceptance and love that I was receiving from my family. By then, I felt the best thing to do was to leave Pittsburgh. So in 1999, I moved to DC. This is where I was introduced into a trans woman that I've never seen before. This is where I was introduced to hormones and things like that. So once I started taking my hormones and hanging around trans women who were more on my mindset, my temperament started to relax. I started to become more at ease. I started to settle down. I went from being like a tomboy to wearing like sports bras and halter tops and jeans to finally starting to enjoy wearing dresses and skirts and heels and things like that. Learning how to properly do makeup and things like that. I still struggled, but it it was getting better. Unfortunately, before I left Pittsburgh, I was into a very deep altercation with an ex of mine who was a Pittsburgh police, to where a gun was involved. My mother, she had reached out to me and let me know that I had a warrant for my arrest. So I turned myself in 2002. And when I did, I ended up getting sentenced to 8.5 to 16 years in a state prison. By then, I have already started developing breasts and things like that. And now the big problems started to kick in, because here I was, a woman in a male facility due to my sexual organs. So for 16 years straight, I stayed fighting and protecting myself. Um, I was sexually assaulted twice in prison, and was told by the prison staff when it happened, that I basically made myself a target by taking hormones and things like that. So it was hard. That's where the aggressive mindset started to kick back in. So it went from me being developing lady characteristics into going back into being very aggressive, very violent. I started to walk through the prison, and if somebody looked at me in a way that I didn't like it, I fought them and things like that. And it was basically not that I enjoyed fighting. In my mind, I felt I had to show these people that I was tough, that I was not scared of them. I had to show them that if you tried to mess with me, I would fight you. And that mindset led me to being sexually assaulted twice. Once by 5 different guys and another time by 7. Um, I didn't make parole due to the fact that after I was sexually assaulted the second time, I pretty much like went on a revenge mission, and that's when I basically started carrying what we call in prison call calling them man-made. They were man-made knives, what we call a shank. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but I started carrying them. So when people would mess with me, instead of fighting, I would stab them. So that led to me end up doing the whole 16 years of my incarceration. But I started towards the end of my incarceration, I started to settle down a little bit, and I started to realize that the LGBT community, especially trans women incarcerated, was not properly taken care of in there. We were discriminated against and things like that. So therefore, I went to administration and I begged them and begged them and begged them to start a support group. Eventually, they allowed us to start the support group. It was an LGBT support group for the inmates, and a staff member there had spread the word to other people in other jails to where they started support groups. Eventually, it got out to the Department of Corrections main headquarters in Camp Hill, and what they did was they started a statewide support group to where once a month the LGBT inmates in each jail would meet in their gymnasium and would be on a big screen, and every institution would be on one main screen, and we would see other LGBT inmates from other jails and just talk about what we were going through and things like that. So this was where I realized that I had a voice and that people needed to be stood for because everybody wasn't brave enough to stand for themselves. When I was released from prison, I met Dina Stanley, the founder of Trans Youniting. I was a patient at Central Outreach Wellness Center here, which is an LGBT medical facility. I got hired as a medical assistant after completing the training. And when I met Dina, she heard my story and she was like, "I need you in my organization." And it was right there. I didn't even have to think about it. I told her, "Yes, I'm very interested." I started sitting on panels with her and doing discussions such as this one and things like that. And eventually, she just started moving me at the ladder in her organization to why I eventually became president now. It was during a protest that a friend of mine pulled me to the side and was like, "I understand you're the president in this organization, but you should also be doing something on your own." And that's when I sat back and I started to think about it. And a very close trans woman that I called my aunt, she was murdered here in Pittsburgh, downtown in a hotel. And when she passed, I fell into a funk. But as I started to come out, because we were fighting to get justice for her, and I started my own organization, which is called the Love Diamond Project, which is basically created in her memory. Her middle name was Diamond, so I said Love Diamond Project, which is basically she was full of love. So that's how I came up with the name of my organization, and still working up under Ms. Dina Stanley. Recently, I've done autobiography of my background, my story with the ACLU in a video format that was publicized on Facebook and Instagram. It was also placed into the local newspaper here. I have done a multiple things of doing standing up and advocating for the full LGBT community here in Pittsburgh, which is my mission with my organization. I just don't stand up for trans individuals. I stand up for everyone who falls under the LGBT umbrella. Because I feel we need voices to speak for us. And me saying that I speak for the whole LGBT community is to show that although that I've had my operation, my full sex change, I don't forget the path that I've walked and where I've come from. We are one big family, and we need to stand together. Due to the fact that I had a felony in Pennsylvania, they had a ban to where you couldn't legally change your name if you had a felony on your record. My organization teamed up with Reed Smith Law Firm, and we fight and we fight and we fight. And then just last year, in December, we went to court, and Reed Smith and the Love Diamond Project, we got the law overturned. So we're now in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you are a trans person and you have a felony on your record, they can't deny you to change your name. So that was a big accomplishment for me and the Love Diamond Project as my first big solo project. And it's just more to come. I look forward to doing many more discussions and just whatever I can to help make our community better. I still struggle with anger at sometimes. It's a work in progress, but now at this moment I can say I'm definitely in a better space. I'm engaged to a wonderful man who loves me, his family loves me, and I have a better relationship with my family due to now that they're trying better to understand my transition in the path that I've chosen to walk in life like that. So basically I'm doing good, and I just want people who's watching this to know that if there's out here, if you need me, I'm Chauntey MoNique Porter, and I'm with Trans Youniting and the Love Diamond Project.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Chauntey, for sharing your experience. Also, just FYI, participants, please get some questions in your head. At the end, we'll be answering questions, and part of your job engaging with this session is to have questions at the end. Do you have anything else, Chauntey?
No, at the time I'm done just sitting and listening.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So I guess I'll get into my portion. Once again, my name is Free. I'm a board member with Trans Youniting. I've been organizing for about 8 years now. Started when I was pretty young, in undergrad. I've been directly involved with Trans Youniting. We are a Black trans led org, and we focus on issues that are disproportionately experienced by Black and Indigenous trans folk. And yeah, so what I'm going to be talking about is I'm going to start with some like social justice theory, specifically interlocking systems of oppression and intersectionality. And then I will get into what activism centering Black and Indigenous trans lives looks like here in Pittsburgh. And I'm specifically going to be pointing out disparities that we see in actions focusing on our community versus other efforts by other orgs in Pittsburgh. And then I'll just conclude with some of the work that Trans Youniting does, why it's so important, and if people want to help amplify our work, we really do need all the assistance we can get. So Audre Lorde is like a really famous freedom fighter. I don't know if she's still alive or not, but she was / is a Black lesbian woman, and one of the founders of the Combahee River Collective, which was made up by Black queer women who were often left out of other social justice movements. One of the main theories or insights that they contributed to the social justice scene was this idea of interlocking systems of oppression. And really simply stated, interlocking systems of oppression is the idea that all these systems we talk about, white supremacy, cis domination, ableism, US imperialism, colonization, etc., are not different. They are all part of the same overarching system that sets up global dynamics of privilege and power, with oppression and discrimination. So, yeah, so, and they argued, one of the main arguments is that you can't fight these systems of oppression individually. White supremacy, cis domination, ableism, US imperialism, like, etc., are all tools that one overarching system uses. And whenever we fail to include multiple avenues of attack in our activism, whenever we fail to include different intersections of oppression in our activism, we ultimately will fail at fighting each individually. So one of Lord's famous quotes that kind of goes into this is the idea that the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. And she gave this, this quote was part of a speech she gave at a white feminist conference that she was included as a special interest. Her as a Black queer woman was put off to the side as like a special interest within feminism. And her argument, or a lot of her whole point of that speech was that, or she talked about the center and the margins. And the center is like the center of privilege. So you have individuals who are white, cis men, heterosexual, US national, abled, neurotypical, etc., at the center of systems of power and privilege. And in the center, the closer one is to the center, the more individuals collaborate with the systems that they benefit from. Or in other words, just like innately, the life we live around our privileges often perpetuates them unless we put work in specifically to fight against those systems that we benefit from. And then Lord talked about the margins, and the margins is the concept of individuals who shoulder more and more systems of oppression. So people with multiple intersections of identities that experience violence from the interlocking systems of oppression. So, you know, this might look like someone who inhabits a Black, Indigenous, person of color identity, a trans identity, an abled or disabled identity, an immigrant identity, someone who fights US imperialism or is harmed by it, etc. And so going back to the idea of the master's tools, the master's tools are developed and used within the center of privilege. And the tools that are actually capable of undermining or dismantling the master's house are naturally developed by individuals who create life and community farther away from these systems of privilege and experience those same systems through oppression and violence. So in other words, the only chance we really have to fight white supremacy, to fight cis domination, is to center our activism around the most marginalized communities in our city, like in our country and our world. So just like to unpack that a little bit more, if we are fighting cis domination, or if we're fighting like homophobia as like a queer community, when we don't also fight white supremacy, when we also don't fight ableism, etc., within that activism, we can't even succeed in fighting homophobia, because all these systems are interlocking and use multiple tools. And then the last thing they argued is that when we do not specifically center the most marginalized communities, we de facto center the most privileged communities within our activism. So if we're doing queer activism, and we are not specifically and intentionally centering Black, Indigenous, trans folk, we de facto are centering our activism around white, cis, upper class, like queer individuals. So it is necessary and important in all activism to center around the most marginalized communities, not only because Black and Indigenous trans folk in Pittsburgh shoulder every system of oppression, but because that's the only space that has the power to actually fight interlocking systems of oppression. There's no issue that is not relevant to Black and Indigenous disabled trans folk. Assigned male at birth, trans feminine individuals, whatever community they are part of, are the most individual or the most vulnerable individuals within said community. And that's why organizations like Trans Youniting and our sibling orgs, orgs who offer support to us, are doing really crucial work, because we, as a community, are creating tools that are capable of fighting multiple systems of oppression simultaneously. So that's the theory stuff. And now we're gonna move on to kind of what Pittsburgh disparities and Pittsburgh activism, and then just some insights I've had working with Trans Youniting about how our community is suffering here in Pittsburgh, and specifically our Black and Indigenous trans siblings. So post George Floyd, we saw an upswell. Say hi, Karma. This is my cat, Karma. But we saw an upswell in activism within Pittsburgh and around the country and around the world. And many activists within organizations that center Black and Indigenous trans folks, such as Trans Youniting, True T Pittsburgh, Hugh Lane Wellness, Sisters PGH, showed up to numerous different types of events in support of many other activist orgs. And what we found was upswelling of support, a higher level of knowledge about deaths and people that have been lost to violence within Pittsburgh and around the United States. And yeah, our org and our leaders, Dina, Chauntey, showed up for the entire Pittsburgh community, the entire queer community. Then we would do actions specifically centering Black and Indigenous trans folk. And we found that there were so many less people who would show up. And we found that, you know, when we were talking about Black Lives Matter and people were screaming the names of, you know, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Antoine Rose, individuals who died to police brutality, that often the trans individuals, the Black and Indigenous trans women that we lost here in Pittsburgh and around the country are not on the lips of other organizations. And often we found that the lives of our community are not being recognized within um, a, a lot of activism that upswelled and post George Floyd. So how Trans Youniting has shown up for especially like the queer community and Black queer community, you know, this past summer we put on Pittsburgh Pride Revolution. Trans Youniting was the lead organizer. Dina Stanley was at the center of organizing this event. And all the other primary organizers were Black trans folk. And this, we had about 8,000 people come out, and the impact of this action of Pittsburgh Pride Revolution was like immense. We saw, you know, we just got tons of feedback about the lives we impacted. I led the fight organizing community. Other people were doing the legal battle, but organizing community around the Delta Foundation attempting to patent Pittsburgh Pride. And so I would put out posts, we did an action, and the posts that I put out received like 3,000, our statistics were like 3,000, 4,000 times the normal amount that our like social media posts get. So we were getting a lot of traction. And Dina Stanley and other Black trans leaders here in Pittsburgh were at the forefront of bringing the queer issues and Black queer issues into the activist scene here in Pittsburgh, and led protests against racist like clothing requirements and et cetera. And then we also saw trans leaders such as Dina Stanley, the community in general would rally around them. And we also had GAM/Neat Craft, who galvanized met like tons of activists here in Pittsburgh, and would show up for events that were more generalized and not specifically around Black and Indigenous trans folk. But then, so, you know, we had 8,000 participants at Pride, but then when we would have actions about the individuals that we lost due to violence, such as Elia Johnson, last year we lost JJ and Jasmine, and these were two Black kids, Black trans children that were murdered by their mother. We recently suffered a loss by another Black trans child, Amari, happened at the beginning of the year. And so, you know, we're just asking whose lips are Black and Indigenous trans folk who die, or the names of Black and Indigenous trans folk. Sorry, that sentence got away from me. But, you know, while many names were being yelled during activism post George Floyd, we found that there was a lack of representation on Black and Indigenous trans folk who were being murdered. And many of these murders were very violent and fueled with the transphobia and white and racism that our fallen siblings were victim to. And then also we did Trans Day of Remembrance. And last year we lost 51 trans folk. So about one per week, not that it happened like that, but that's the level of death we were dealing with. And we also know that this 51 is only the people who are reported. We know from being in community with trans folk that this loss, that death toll is significantly higher because reporting does not, as or trans deaths are usually not reported as such. We also, a statistic that keeps coming back to my mind is that 52% of the general trans population attempts suicide. And this is significantly higher for Black trans folk, and this is much higher for Black trans youth. And we often leave out disability and mental health issues in our conversation about loss of trans life. And our community, we lose many individuals to severe mental health challenges because of the level of oppression and violence that the community faces. Okay, so just to hit my points again, the first point I made was the need for centering the most vulnerable communities within our city and within all of our activism work. And then I talked a little bit about what activism or disparities of support that trans organizations receive, that focus on Black and Indigenous trans folk and activism. And then the last part that I want to talk about is the power of our community to fight the systems of oppression that organizations like Trans Youniting are fighting. So Trans Youniting started, I think, back in 2007, founded by Dina Stanley, who is organizing leader here in Pittsburgh. Dina is a Black trans woman and just really connected with the trans community here in Pittsburgh. And so this org came out of her natural, or what she was already doing, of connecting different supports for trans people, because trans people would come to her and be like, hey, we need the support. This is what's going on. And then she would connect them with other individuals. So Trans Youniting started as a mutual aid organization way back in 2007. And then since then it has grown, and we do, the work we do is pretty expansive, and it encompasses and we try to take on as much different issues that is faced within the trans community, specifically Black and Indigenous trans individuals. One of the things that we were able to accomplish this past year, partnering with our sibling org Proudhaven, was a crisis bed housing initiative where we were able to raise the funds to run an apartment in which we have 2 short-term crisis beds and then 2 like longer term crisis beds for trans individuals who face homelessness. Um, and yeah, no, we've already, it's only been open 3 or 4 months, but we've already had numerous people come in and stay with us, because that's another thing that happens like a lot within our community is homelessness and people getting kicked out by their parents, people getting kicked out by their landlords. I forget what the statistic was, but a huge amount of um, Black and Indigenous trans people of color experience sexual assault by their landlords, who threaten, like, if you don't have sex with me, you're gone, and then and then these trans individuals get kicked out anyway. Um, so that was a really big victory that we had this past year, and it came from the Trans Crisis Fund that we put out, that was able to raise around $20,000. We also do crisis stipends. So funding allowing, we're able to distribute $100 to $300 per person every 6 months that requests it. And this money can go into helping with security deposits, rent, food, transportation, medical, whatever have you. Now, those stipends are funding specific. And one of the challenges that Trans Youniting faces is that we just have like a lack of funds. And we also, all the individuals who do work with Trans Youniting are volunteers. So we have multiple people doing part and even full-time jobs with our organizations or organization that are not getting paid. And the need of the trans community here in Pittsburgh is so much higher than the resources that are available. And so a lot of challenges of our organization and other organizations are, like, the root of them are financial and resource driven. And ideally, we would love to offer more stipends at higher rates and help keep our community alive and safe. So yeah, we also did the Trans Self-Defense Fund that was oh no. Okay, there was a org that helped us um with that, and actually took initiative in organizing the fund, and we were able to raise $5,000 for 65 self-defense kits that we distributed to trans folk here in Pittsburgh to try to help keep our community safe. We also have a youth program that once again is partnered with our sibling organization, Proud Haven. And we have a physical location, I believe in the North Shore, where youth, I think 13 to 21, queer youth 13 to 21 can just show up to our space. And we always have a trans adult there. And it's just like a hangout space. And we actually have a lot of queer kids that come together and have formed community. And one of the things that have come out of that community is we have bi-weekly, one of our youth, our trans youth, puts on Tea Talk, and it is a support group led by queer youth for queer youth. Yeah, that is doing really amazing work. We recently got a grant, and we're going to start another program that focuses on the prosperity for our community. So doing job training, helping people get placed with jobs, access to resources, access to medical care, and etc. So we're about to get that started. And I think one of the things I do want to say about the work we do is that, you know, I don't really consider us like a nonprofit. We are a community. And those of us who, you know, are together are a family. And this comes from, or this is a tradition from Black trans ancestry, in which communities of trans folk and Black queer folk would come together and recreate families or systems of families and support um, and resiliency, and we're creating life that was capable of meeting needs and promoting healing and prosperity within our community. And that's one of the ways that Trans Youniting operates is, you know, we are a part of the community. You know, we are all trans folk who are engaged in protecting and saving as many trans lives as we can. Many of us are trans parents and take trans youth underneath our wing. And yeah, no, a lot of our work, the basis of our work is work of love and support. Um, so yeah. Um, Yeah, so that kind of goes through the points I wanted to make. Once again, in our fight for social justice and liberation, we have to center the most marginalized individuals and communities within our organizing. And that the second point is that there's actually really strong disparities that are setting up the opposite, there's a lot of work that's being done, especially I've seen within the queer community that centers white queer folk or Black cis queer folk and leave out Black and Indigenous trans individuals. And that's also a trend that we see within just like larger activism in general. And then finally, um, uh, the organizations like Trans Youniting and our sibling orgs are doing the work, and we are simultaneously fighting interlocking systems of oppression. And basically, like orgs like ours actually do have the tools. We create life and community uh, while centering our organizing around our most vulnerable individuals within our community. Um, so yeah, that is kind of what I wanted to talk about. I think we have maybe like I actually don't know when this ends. Could a moderator text or type in when this session is to end? Okay, 3:45. So we actually have a little bit to kind of get into questions. And I just want to hear, please, you know, take time to unmute yourself. I want to hear your voice if possible. Alternatively, if not, you can type it in the chat. And I would just like to hear questions for me, for Chauntey, for anything that, you know, we've talked about today. And don't be afraid, there's no bad questions, or if you don't feel like you have a lot of skill or like knowledge, you know, just like go for it. Oh, and then you all have just been able to unmute yourselves, so go for it.
I'll ask a question. This is Kelsey about how to I guess some of the best ways to stay informed, if there are social media accounts that y'all recommend or email lists, just to support y'all and stay up to date on everything going on.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelsey. Yeah, I'll type out our social media information and our website information. And those are really great ways to keep on top of like what is happening and going on with the trans community here in Pittsburgh and the work that we are doing to support trans lives here in Pittsburgh. So yeah, I'll type that out. And also something I want to specifically give a shout out to is Dina is working with Amari's family. Amari is a Black trans girl who was pretty brutally murdered earlier this year. And we will be partnering with the family and seeking justice. There's been a zero, what's that called? The police are not communicating with the family at all, and there's very little knowledge about, there's not a level of accountability about how the investigation is going and what is happening. So yeah, please follow us on social media. Okay. And then in the chat, Sonia, could you unmute yourself and ask what you were going to add or what you typed out?
Yeah, sorry. Hi, my name is Sonia. Pronouns are she, her. Just wondering if there's other ways that folks can get involved to help other than just normal, my day-to-day activism, donations if I can. We helped out with the Thanksgiving meal donation or delivery, which was so fun. Just wondering if there's other big or small opportunities for us to help.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. So something that is going to be happening within the next few weeks, Dina and I are going to be working together to restructure some of Trans Youniting and how we organize individuals and volunteers. So we'll be putting out calls for volunteers, and then also I'm going to put in our website. That's the best way to contact us. Please reach out and say that you're interested in helping, because as I touched on earlier, most of the work being done right now is by Black trans women and disabled white trans individuals, completely volunteer. So we really do need assistance and support to amplify our work. Allie, did you put your hand up?
I did. Hi, my name's Allie. I'm sort of in between pronouns at the moment, I guess. I just saw your post on Instagram about UPMC covering gender confirmation surgeries, and that's awesome. And I was just on the website and reading about something about top surgery, and they still require letters from healthcare providers. Is that something that people are working on, advocating for changing those policies?
Thank you very much, Allie. That is something that is really important. Also, personally, has been really impactful. I'm disabled and neurodivergent with significant mental health illness, and I've had to go through extra hoops in order to get those letters. That is not something we are working on right now. Mostly what Trans Youniting does is focus on crisis services. So yeah, thank you for your question.
I guess as a second part, do you know if sort of regionally or locally anybody's working on that? I'm kind of new to the area, and I was just kind of surprised to see that still.
Yeah, thank you. And once again, I'm not aware of anyone specifically working on that. Okay. Okay, we got a lot of questions, so someone just unmute and ask away.
Right, Free, just in case people are nervous to say it, this kid is Kate. Eddie actually mentioned, how do you make room to disengage toxic family dynamics? A lot of us don't know what a healthy family looks like.
Yeah, that's a really great question, Eddie. Thank you for asking. And I think that is reflected in you know, our youth program and just like the community of trans people we build. You know, as I said, we're a family who offers support within our community. And part of queer like ancestry is about this kind of like disconnecting with ideas of biological family and focusing on chosen family. So us engaging with people who are capable of giving us that nurturing um, that we are looking for. And so, yeah, we have a youth program currently, and we're trying to get just in general, a support group up and going. And then we do a ton of community events, and we love, we do the work because we love our community, and we want to keep all of our siblings safe. So reach out and connect with us. Kate, can you, would you be able to go through some
Sure.
of the questions?
Yeah, sure. So another question came in from Jennifer. She said, I joined late, so this may have already been covered already, but I'd love to hear the ways that your group has supported youth in initiatives or projects that they've wanted to lead. You mentioned the tea meetings. Any examples like that?
Yeah, okay, so we have the True Tea meetings every other Sunday. Information on scheduling is on there. And then another thing that we do a little informally is we set up young, especially trans folk, up with like mentors or parents. So for example, or like me personally, I'm a trans mother, so I've taken in trans children and offered mentorship, love, and support to my trans kids, and also help them navigate this world as a trans individual. And I know Dina does that, and that's something a little less formally. And then we have our youth program that is partnered with Proud Haven, and that's a really pretty sacred and amazing queer youth space. And you can, once again, I just put our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and then our website, and then also you can look up Proud Haven on Facebook, and they have more information about like time, location, and they do a lot of events as well. Thank you.
Just want to remind anyone, if you want to ask a question, please just come on off mute. While folks are thinking of that, Jeremy happened to mention great presentation and work. Got an email about this year's Pride from Sisters yesterday of moving it to Swissvale. Will you be involved in that as well?
Yeah, so Sisters does the Pittsburgh People Pride, which was one of the, I believe it was the first Pride here in Pittsburgh that was started quite some time ago, that that was about disconnecting the queer community from corporate pride and actually engaging with our community and offering supports and protesting the harm that has been done and is continued to be done. We are not involved with organizing that. That is Sisters Pittsburgh. We are doing Pittsburgh Pride Revolution. So, but big fan of People's Pride Pittsburgh.
Hi there. We have a question from Beck.
First, I have a comment. I want to apologize for the rest of the LGBTQ plus community and not supporting the T in our community as much as we should. Also, my question is, as a lesbian elder, what special skills might I be able to bring to help you guys out more?
Hi, Beck. Thank you
Hi.
for your question. Love you. Yeah, and thank you for the apology. I think one thing that has been impactful for the cis queer people in my life is trying to bring individuals into spaces that are honoring and focusing on the violence that Black and Indigenous trans people face. And it's often very surprising for cis queer white people to see the level of violence that is being experienced by my Black and Indigenous trans siblings. So yeah, thank you for that comment, Beck. And then what can you do to get involved? I know you asked me this question and I didn't get back to you, so I'm sorry about that. But as I said, we're trying to get our volunteer base up and going. And really, what I'm envisioning for that is utilizing the skills of individuals and seeing how they can help out, because Trans Youniting is a family, is a community of queer folk. And, we're looking for, to create community, and we're asking people to help out however they can. That being said, if anyone's a grant writer, please, and could help us out, please message me. Please, please, please. We need grant writers. And then also, something I wanted to say to fellow white people, allies and activists, is our job, we have many roles and we have stake in the fight for liberation. And as white people, a lot of the basis for the privileges that white supremacy and colonization and US imperialism have done is given us, our community, financial resources. And one of the best things we can do is to move money. Reparations is real, and reparations does not have to happen. I think one thing that's hard for white people to wrap their head around is you can literally offer financial support to your friend, if you, or people within your community. And yeah, we should just really be moving money. And I think one of my experiences with that is I was the lead organizer of the Trans Crisis Fund. And I'm not able to financially offer support. I'm disabled. I have no resources, but financial resources, but within the white community that I'm connected with here in Pittsburgh, collectively, we have a significant amount of financial resources. And because, me as a white person was asking individuals to move money, we were able to raise $20,000 shockingly quickly. So yeah, I really just want to put out there, white people, we need to be moving money, and we don't need, no one needs to there's not a right way, or you don't need a certification, you don't need training. Just start doing it, start collecting money, and and going to organizations and like offering support, or looking within your own community and circles within Pittsburgh and helping to move money towards individuals who are experiencing discrimination and violence.
Thank you both so much. Chauntey, I'd love to get your thoughts on some of the questions people have asked as well. So, you know, coming from your experiences from your activism, do you have anything you want to add to any of this?
I do know I wasn't super clear on the one question. I can't remember their pronouns, so please forgive me. After the individual asking about the surgeries. Are they still here?
Yeah, the person who asked that, would you mind going off mute and repeating your question?
I think that was me. I was asking if anyone knows of there's any advocacy or anything, anybody working on getting rid of those requirements for letters from medical providers for gender confirmation surgeries.
So as far as the letters are concerned, it's truly it's what they're doing is someone tried to challenge it not too long ago. Yeah, someone tried to challenge it not too long ago, but the reason why they're not taking it away basically is to get the letters you have to prove that you've done some type of therapy or whatever, depending on what surgery you're getting done. That's just mandated law all over the country. So therefore, that's the only way to prove that you get them letters, because you get it from the person who is providing the therapy. So at the time, a lot of activists are backing away from that for the time being, because it's not it's pretty much like a fight that's not winnable because the state's not budging on it.
Thank you for sharing that insight, and just hoping there's a way we can make those surgeries more accessible for everyone that needs them.
I also wanted to throw out there something that wasn't spoken on but really needs to be spoken on. If any individual that's in the conference, or if you know of someone who is struggling with addiction, whether it be alcohol addiction or drug addiction, and they're not sure where they can go for therapy or help or meetings and things, Sisters Pittsburgh has a program in Swissville. It's an LGBT drug and alcohol program, to where they have meetings and they make referrals to different places that you could go to. So if you know anyone that might help, you know, please let them know they can reach out to Sisters PGH.
Awesome, thank you. Does anyone have any other questions? Feel free to go off mute or post them in the chat.
It says monkeys on a loose in Pennsylvania after a truck crash.
Oh.
I have a quick question. My name is Thistle, pronouns are she and her, and I am the proud parent of a former Pittsburgh EMT who reached out to me during his service because he was providing care to a trans individual who panicked about not being taken to a specific ER over a different specific ER. And so we began some efforts at that time, this is a few years back, to gather information through our different circles about local trans experience in medical crises. And just curious if either of you can speak to that as a concern, as progress, as really anything, any ingredients around that.
Chauntey, I've been answering a lot of questions, so I wanted to give you a chance to take the shot at it.
Okay. Can you say the ending part of that, please?
So the ending part had to do with the experience with emergency care in the city as a trans person and feeling safe or less safe in different emergency settings, medical settings.
Okay, so you're saying like if you have to go to the emergency room or a medical clinic, and feeling safe as far as letting someone know that you're trans or of the LGBT community. I just want to make sure that I'm getting the question right.
Yes.
Okay, so what you can do, oh my goodness, I forget their name. It's free. You might can help me with this. There's a organization called Trans Buddies, or I'm sorry, I can't think of the proper name, but I also know that the Love Diamond Project, which is my organization, we offer to go to different appointments with people. I've done it myself, to where we sit and whether it's an emergency room or a doctor's appointment, and sit with you through your whole appointment until you're done, just to make sure that you're receiving fair and equal treatment and a safe trip to whatever appointment you're going to. Also, if you would like to consider it, I don't know if you heard of Central Outreach Wellness Center, which is in the North Shore. That's an LGBT medical facility, and also in East Liberty, you have Allies Health and Wellbeing on Penn Avenue, which is across the street from that big church. Both of those are LGBT health facilities. I utilize both of them as well. Great medical service and definitely very professional.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Did you have any additional thing to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So not in regards to any more services, but this is actually a really impactful experience for a lot of trans individuals. When in crisis, going to services and experiencing second round of trauma. For example, like trans individuals whose family put out like a warrant for them to be forcefully hospitalized at like Western Psych, and then go to Western Psych and experience further harm from that organization, or like going into emergency rooms and being in shock and tons of pain and in danger, and then having people argue with you about what your real name is and pronouns. So yeah, this is actually a really crucial issue.
Do you
So
mind if
if
I
I'm-
add something to that for you from like a medical mental health perspective, if that's okay? Like as someone who does crisis support, I know you guys have maybe seen me out here doing it at Actions. You can actually name your own advocate. So you can bring someone with you and just tell whoever is giving you the services that this is your advocate. So then they can work with whatever team is giving you services as a part of your team. So that if there are like any issues that, you know, they can be a barrier for or anything like that, that's super helpful. And if they give you any troubles legally, you can just ask, you know, like, hey, can I sign the medical release for this person? And they just both sign that form that says that you're acting as an advocate. So like legally, it doesn't have to be like a parent or caretaker. It can literally be anyone. So that's really helpful. And then like another piece of the issue, specifically with going to spaces that are like queer friendly is like when you call an ambulance, their protocol is to only take you to a specific place that's closest. So if you call like Trans Buddy or you call the Diamond Project and they transport you, or if Resolve transports you, then they can take you anywhere that you request, that you know has like is friendly to your community. So those are just some like Allegheny County processes things that can maybe be helpful. I don't know if that was helpful, but things that I have figured out from being like a queer mentally ill person who does advocate in the community. So there are some like weird things there, but you know, thank goodness these orgs exist. So just some things.
Thanks, Deja.
So if you have a question or would like to ask a follow-up, again, remind you to just go ahead and take yourself off mute. We'd love to hear from you. Or if you're more comfortable, feel free to put it into the chat. So Free, it looks like we don't have any additional questions. Chauntey, I don't see any additional questions. Are there any last thoughts that you'd like to share with the group?
For me, I just want to remind people, I know you've heard it probably a million times before, to just remember that there's unity within this community. We have a bad stigma that there's people in this community don't care for each other, and that's not true. There's people out here who love you guys just for being who you are. We are all brothers and sisters under this umbrella, and just know that I know Free a little bit, and Dana Stanley and a lot of people who's into this line of work. If you reach out for just, no matter how big or small the situation may be, if you think that it may be minute, because I want you to understand one thing, that what you may think that is something small, we may think is big. So please utilize the services of all these organizations, and don't hesitate just to, say, hey, even if you're just feeling down throughout the day and don't have nobody else to turn to, someone will talk to you. That's because when it's all said and done, we definitely want people to have good mental health throughout 2022. So I'm there. So you can go on Facebook and go to the Love Diamond Project and follow us there, and Trans Youniting also, and become a member. And it does more than just keep you up to date what's going on. You can leave comments or just request that someone get in contact with you, because you just need someone to talk to.
Yeah, yeah, I just want to echo just what Chauntey said. Is, you know, like we really consider ourselves a family, and siblings, and that's part of, like, you know, what queer people have been doing since day one. So yeah, there's an ability to connect as like the org and then as individuals in community. So
a listing of the resources there in the chat, which is amazing. And certainly want to thank everyone. We'll also be putting a survey link into the chat because we'd love to hear your thoughts about how things have gone during this session. So thanks so much for everyone attending.
yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.